This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
So in many ways, the heart of strategic management is strategic planning. And one of the commonest ways of going about strategic planning is to use what's called the rational approach or the rational model. And it's called rational because what it does is it tries to collect as much information as it can. It makes logical or rational decisions and evaluations of that information. And then based on the potential conclusions which the data provides, it then makes rational, logical choices as to what it should be doing in the future. Of course, very often there can be conflicting choices. Should we do A or should we do B? And there's no absolutely clear-cut way of deciding. But the idea is it's kind of better than just working in the dark or completely gambling on what we should be doing. So you'd have met this rational model before. It breaks into these three sections, what's called position analysis, which is basically information gathering. What is our position, particularly our position with respect to what's happening in the environment and what our competitors are doing? Then we can make our choice. And then the hard work begins really with action or implementation. We'll be looking at some of these in more detail later, so this is just a very quick overview here. But the idea of a mission is really thinking, well, what's our purpose? That's really what the mission is in here. And we have to know the way the company makes money, what its purpose is, what its reason for doing, what maybe do people expect from it. So it could be a car company, it could be a television company, it could be a mobile phone company, it could be a holiday company, but it must have a clear vision of what it is doing, how it's going to be making money, how it's going to be serving the public, and also, what it's well known at, what it's well known for. We have to know what our stakeholders want. Stakeholders we'll see as anyone involved with or touched by the organization. Organizations tend to be run for someone or some other organization. They are the stakeholders. So companies typically are run for the shareholders, although of course many other people are interested in what the company's doing. A hospital is maybe primarily run for its patients, though of course medical staff and governments and so on are interested in what it's doing as well. So we have to try and find out what do our stakeholders want, and in some cases what might they insist on us doing. They have very often a very big influence in what we're going to be doing. We then gather external information, what's happening around us, the politics, economics, competitors, the technology, and so on. We see what's happening or what do we have internally, what are we good at, what are we bad at, basically. What are our strengths and weaknesses? And bringing all of this information together, what do our shareholders and stakeholders want? What's happening in the environment? What are we good at, what are we bad at? In a way, what is possible? What should we be doing, and indeed what is possible? And we can set objectives from this, maybe how many patients to treat next year, what our profit should be in next year, how many of our children going through the school or that's the organization are going to hit particular exam targets next year and so on. And then what we do is we look at ways in which we could achieve that. And very often there are different ways in which you could achieve it. So if you were a hospital, how are we going to improve patient care? There's maybe a choice. There's going to be a choice. Maybe we do everything in-house, or maybe what we do is we decide maybe to subcontract some services. Maybe we subcontract cleaning. Maybe we subcontract some of the laboratory services to someone or an organization who can do it really efficiently. Or maybe we're prepared to keep it in-house, but there are usually choices available as to how best you think you will achieve your objectives. Then you make your choice, and then you have to implement it. There's action. And whereas these first bits here, maybe you do in a week or something, of course, the strategic implementation is really where the hard work starts. Implementing, say, expansion for plans for a company, it could take 3 to 5 years. And what we need to do is to control this process. And we need to do two things, really. First of all, we've had our particular objectives. We have made a particular choice. We have to keep thinking, is that still appropriate? Because things change, the world changes, the economy changes, the political situation changes, and something which was appropriate when we made a decision may be wildly inappropriate in a couple of years, and we may need to change our plans. The second thing we need to do, even if the plan stayed the same, is we need to make sure we're aiming at it, that we're going to hit the plan in the time that it's going to deliver what we think it's going to deliver. So we need frequent checkups, really, that we're on target and that we're on course. So that's what's called basically the rational model. Collect information, think about it, make your decision, and then implement the decision. This just illustrates that although we seem to have gone through 1, 2, 3 there, collect information, make your choice, implement it, it's never going to be like that. It's a much more reiterative sort of process here. It's like going on holiday. You get all the brochures. You get all the information you need to make your holidays. You get your friends round. You decide that you're going to go 2 weeks somewhere in August here. You make your choices. And then, of course, when you go back to try and book the holidays, you find that maybe that flight or that hotel is full. Or maybe when one of your friends goes back to book holidays off work, finds he or she can get the holidays that you want. And so what you need to do is to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and reconsider stuff. So always once you start doing things, you find out a little bit more about it. You find out things, well, it's not just as simple or as straightforward or as cheap as I thought. Or maybe it's riskier than I thought. Or there's another idea that we hadn't thought of originally that I've now stumbled upon when I actually get to the implementation. So what you're doing here is really circulating round here. And it's very important that any strategic plan is never thought to be set in stone. Part of strategic planning is actually to try and build in enough slack that you remain flexible, that you can maybe abandon a plan if it seems to be going incorrectly, that maybe you can go faster if it seems to be going well and you want to expand faster than maybe some of your competitors are beginning to do. This, again, is going to be familiar with you. It is simply saying that the plan you first thought of, which is here called the intended strategy, is rarely going to be the plan you end up doing. It's rarely going to be realized fully. What will happen is, as time passes, you're going to drop some ideas. Maybe you discover they were wrong, too expensive, too difficult, too risky, and therefore you just kind of quietly drop them. But as time goes on and you gain more experience, and of course as time passes things change, then you have what's called emergent strategies, new ideas which you can incorporate into the plan. So the realized strategy is this kind of real mix-up, things we always intended to do, the deliberate strategy, less things we abandoned, so to speak, plus new ideas we picked up on the way. And again, it's simply illustrating here that flexibility in strategic planning is key. No one can foretell the future perfectly enough to be able to stick with the plan that they first thought of. And they should be willing and should be humble enough, really, to be prepared to change it. Not everyone believes that this big rational model is actually correct. The irrational model is kind of saying, I'm going to be planning for the next 5 years, maybe the next 10 years and so on. And some people say that this is a kind of arrogance, and particularly this here, that people say you don't know the future. You don't even know what's called the known unknowns. You know that your competitors are planning something. You know that your competitors are working on a new product, and you don't know what it is. So that's why we called it a known unknown. We know we don't know what our competitors are doing. So what is the point really in making a 5-year plan when you know your competitors could be launching a product which knocks that plan, into oblivion? That it's simply not rational to keep following it. As well as that, there are what's called unknown unknowns. That things happen. There's maybe a very serious earthquake, or maybe a war breaks out, or maybe there's an economic crash, and so on. And we know these bad things happen. We know sometimes good things happen, of course. And if these random good and bad things are happening, we don't know what they are, but they will happen. Why are we making fantastically detailed plans for the next 5 or 10 years? And these people would say that rather than making these big 5-year kind of jumps, they would say it's going to be better to make small extensions of past policies. So you're kind of traveling along here a little bit, and you see maybe the economy looks as though it's picking up. So we do, the economy's kind of picking up a little bit. Let's begin to expand just a little bit here. Another year, yes, the economy's still picking up. We'll continue expanding. And then you begin saying, well, maybe there are now signs of the economy tailing off. So what we do maybe is we shelve some of our potential expansion. And then we'll see, in another couple of years, whether the economy is going to take off again or whether it's going to be a downturn. And they're saying that's far safer than these people who go for their 5-year type of planning. They see the economy's picking up, and they make fantastic plans to go and expand massively. And maybe the economic pickup's only temporary. And you find out here that you've got far too much productive capacity. You've spent far too much money for the environment, which is actually you're actually going to have to be dealing with. The final view on strategic planning is freewheeling opportunism. Basically, these are people who do not like planning. They are often entrepreneurs. They often like grabbing opportunities as they see them. The great advantage of this is that they grab opportunities very quickly. They don't spend a lot of time planning and thinking. And they can often enter markets very quickly. The disadvantage is, of course, they will jump in with both feet and the eyes closed, really. Maybe too quickly, maybe without evaluating all the risks and the expense and so on. Sometimes they're very successful. You often find serial entrepreneurs who seem to jump from one success to another. But you never quite know whether they are the only serial entrepreneurs who are left standing. That they are, someone's going to be successful by making kind of enough random choices here. And there could be many of these freewheeling opportunists who make a wrong choice, and this is fatal for their business, and we just never hear of them again. I think it's mainly a kind of psychological description of planning. I don't think anyone particularly deliberately sets out to be a freewheeling opportunist, but just some people are not interested in the detailed planning. They would rather get on and do, and perhaps gamble a little bit and hope for the best. Potential advantages of strategic planning. Well, it gives you long-term objectives. And everyone likes to know where they're going. You like to know the long-term objectives. But then what tends to happen is you know where you're going to be in 5 years, and therefore 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and so on. So this kind of future is mapped out for you in the strategic plan. And many people like that. If you don't have that mapped out, you're kind of floating around in kind of space almost, with no sense of direction, and no idea whether you're doing good or bad, or indeed what you should be doing. It will provide better coordination that the manufacturing capacity meets the sales capacity, meets the distribution capacity, and so on. And that should save money. It can take a long time to implement some plans, and the way many investments work is that there's negative cash flow, negative cash flow, negative cash flows. You're kind of building the factory for 3 years, then about zero cash flow, or if you're opening in another country, and then maybe on about the 5th year you break into profit. The point being made here is that if you don't see the kind of promised land coming up at the end of 5 years, what is going to sustain you through these tough early years where it's work, 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 spend, 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 loss, 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 if you don't have some hope, some plan, some promise, if you like, for profit in the future? Management should seek to control the future. If you're looking ahead and you see something you don't like, you don't always have to just kind of surrender to that. You may be able to change it. You may be able to postpone or change laws which are going to be coming in, or taxes which are going to be imposed, by maybe going to the government ministers and lobbying, basically, and trying to explain how this is going to hurt the business. You could do it maybe by marketing. By marketing a product, showing the good points of the product, you get over the kind of negative connotations that there might be amongst the public regarding our product. And finally, you are forced to look ahead. You won't see everything. You won't see every problem. But surely looking ahead is better than kind of stumbling forward with your eyes closed. Forewarned is forearmed. If you see things which are going to be opportunists or opportunities or threats in the future, it is better to know about those in advance rather than being surprised about them. And the fact that you don't see 100% of those things is no argument for saying that it mightn't be worthwhile, let's say, seeing 70% of the problems in the future. That some strategic planning, imperfect though it might be, is better than none. Potential disadvantages of strategic planning. All of these are really to do with too much. Too much time and effort spent on strategic planning. Nobody makes money by strategic planning. You only make money by doing. And at some point, you have to take the risk. I think many people find comfort in planning because it means you're still kind of hedging your bets. That they plan, want more data, and they're reluctant to ever do, because once you say, right, I'll build that factory, then you've sort of burnt your boats a little bit. And if it doesn't go wrong, then of course there are, penalties maybe to pay. If it doesn't go right, then kind of penalties to pay for that. So too much, too slow, too expensive. It's all to do really with not strategic planning as such, but too much of it.